Hey guys, this week we're going to be looking at a minimum factory kit, something which we haven't done in quite some time, with their 1/20th scale Yamato figure from Kantai collection. So let's open her on up and take a look. If I can get her out of the box. So here we'll start out with parts for part of the superstructure for the ship portion of this figure, comprised of two matching sides that will ultimately house the turrets for two of the 18-inch guns. Continue on, some more detail parts, including the build-up for the rear turret, as well as the smokestacks and radio antennas. These are, for the scale, quite nice, and thankfully they did include some protection for the finer bits. Overall, nice job there. Turning on, a few more odd and end detail parts, as well as her anchors and her upper portions of her feet. Next up, we've got sprues containing all of the hair parts, which are quite fine in some places, especially this particular set of follicles here and here. So that is be aware of and be careful when assembling. Continuing on, we've got our sprue containing some of the shells that she wears for the 18-inch guns. That shows up. Also, main torso, and let me make sure I get this right way, as well as her chest area and arms. Next up, we've got our flesh pieces, including her face, which unfortunately, again, hopefully this will show up. I'm quite disappointed. They did a very poor job rendering the eye area. It's basically flat, and you are required to take care of it with decals. Why, in this scale, it may not seem that much. Personally, I would have preferred if they'd done some more detailing in the face. Beyond that, on this sprue, we've got parts for her arms, upper thighs, lower torso, and as well as her hand. Yeah. Continuing on, we got some clothing bits comprising her skirt, which we'll need to have some of the finer details painted up. I'm forgetting what the upper part on uniforms called, but that part, as well as the lower halves for heels, including the part that ultimately connects into the base, which we'll look at in a little bit. Now, next sprue I'm going to only show one of, but this is for her main battery, the large 18-inch gun, triple 18-inch guns. Now, they do have the rear portion of the gun as this sort of grayish green plastic instead of the white, which you'll see on the box and in reference photos for the real ship. Barrels also aren't drilled open, so that's something you may do. Or personally, I'm leaning towards hacking them all off and replacing them with brass tubing, as I personally think that would look sharper and add that little extra spice to the figure. Oop, as I drop stuff. Next up, we've got another set of turrets for the smaller, I want to say they're 5-inch guns. I'm blanking on exact reference material for the Yamato, but get two sprues of that, more hull siding, and well as her umbrella, well, technically parasol, but one complaint I have with this is the plastic is fairly thick, and with a parasol, you would expect light to pass through it. So if you're really creative, I would say you might want to scratch build one to give it that little extra bit of flair. Lastly are her leg parts and a plug for the base, which now I'll get to, as we do have a fairly bland base, and unfortunately you do need a mount to help support the backpack ship parts, which is unfortunate. Now, you get, as I said, decals for doing the eyes and a couple other odd and end parts. Overall, not a whole lot to say. Good color register, nice and thin. We'll move on. Now, on to the instructions. It's split between the figure part and the ship parts. So starting with the ship parts, there's not a whole lot to their construction. It's pretty straightforward, and if you can build most models, this part shouldn't give you any real difficulty. One thing I would say is you might take a little time and do little bits of detailing here and there. As for the figure, that's where things get a little more complicated. Thankfully, most things are broken down fairly well. But again, I would say definitely take your time and use reference photos both and wherever possible. Now, they do not give you a paint key, again, much like the Grills and Panzer kit we had looked at previously, which still bugs me a little. It would be nice if they gave you a more formal paint key to at least tell you, these areas, like the skirt, for example. If it gave you information on how to, need this part to be black, this part to be red, so on and so forth. So obviously I get that they're trying to aim more towards the gunpla market, and that you can just build it pretty straight, but at the same time, it would be nice if they do give you the added information. Thankfully, though, they do give you full placement information for all of the decals. And lastly, as before, they give you a nice pinup poster on the back of the instruction sheet, which is a nice inclusion. So, overall, now, it's an interesting kit. It's got its fair bit of complexity and has a lot of room for you to do a lot of neat and custom stuff. It's not without issues, and you do need to be fairly careful and make sure you do things in the right order. Would have been nice also if you didn't have to include a support for the backpack parts, but unfortunately it is what it is, and given the weight of that, I can understand why they want you to include that support. And the unfortunate reality is that not always can you get everything to hold together with a single joining. So that was a look at Minimum Factory's 1/20th scale Yamato figure kit. Interesting little kit, has its quirks. Some areas could be better, some areas could be worse. So until next time.